Hey, this is Madeline Sklar.
And Suze Cooper, and you're listening to All Things Audio. I was talking in Spaces Day about my first experience of Twitter Spaces, and I was recalling how that actually came from a webinar that you were... Well, it wasn't a webinar. It was the LinkedIn Club with Sarah Clay.
Yes.
And you were explaining about Twitter Spaces, and I was there.
I was her guest. Yeah, I was her guest. And oh my gosh, early this year, everybody wanted me to come on their programs and talk about Twitter Spaces because it was so new. And I had the ability to host as a beta tester. And yeah, it was very early in the morning for me in Texas because y'all are all over in the UK. And so I told her, I said, for you, I will get up really early. We planned that probably 4, 5, maybe even 6 months out. Like we planned it a really long time in advance. And when we got closer, I said, there's this new thing called Twitter Spaces. Because she knew I would talk about Twitter in some capacity, but Spaces was so new. So that's right. You were there. It was a great group of people there that day.
Yeah, it was really good. And the great thing about it was that you spoke all about Spaces, you told everybody what it was, and then you were like, hey, let's jump off Zoom and go and experience Twitter Spaces. And you just spun up a space, brought us all over onto Twitter. And that was my first experience of Twitter Spaces. And I was kind of explaining how I'd taken a bit of a social media break as the pandemic hit, like a lot of people did. It wasn't right for my head to be sat there scrolling all the time. And actually joining Sarah's LinkedIn Club was the first time that I was sort of reconnecting with my social media community, if you like. And absolutely, because it was you speaking, I rushed into that one, not expecting to hear about Twitter Spaces, not really even knowing what they were, and then heard all about it and had my eyes opened and just thought, oh my goodness, this has all happened while I've taken a bit of a break. I need to get back into this. And yeah, it was incredible. I just love the fact that you took us all off of Zoom and you were like, hey, what's the point in sitting on Zoom talking about Twitter Spaces when you could be on Twitter Spaces? It was brilliant.
Yeah, let's show it. Hey, that's so me. That's a very me thing to do because, we're winding down. I'm like, hey, I can just go start a room and we can all move over there. And so you can see, because what better way to see something and learn than to go to it and do it, see it in action. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I'm so glad that was your first experience with Spaces. It was so new at the time. And it didn't have all the features it has now, but you and I have really made a great team coming together each week for All Things Audio. So thank you, Suze. This has been so much fun.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing. I remember leaving that space and I filled in the Google form to get my access, which actually was granted fairly quickly. And from there, we've just gone from week to week to week, building up this All Things Audio Twitter space. And I'm so proud of it. I think it's, one of the greatest achievements of 2021 for me. And I'm so glad that I've got to do this with you. It's been fantastic.
It's been we've been doing it for almost a year. Like a good part of the year since we started sometime in April, maybe a little bit into March. I'll have to go back through my calendar, see if I can, but I do show we started weekly on Wednesdays at this time back in mid-April. So that's very cool. It's been a lot of fun. And I love how we've turned it into a podcast. I thought more people would do that with their rooms and spaces, people that host regularly like you and I do, but really not that many people do. It seems to be just people that are podcasters like us because we know how to do it.
Yeah. And I've been, it's great to see the podcast grow. It grows every single week. Like I go in there and update the next episode and add all the show notes and everything into it. And I give myself a little look at the stats. And the thing is, you can't really be driven by stats, really. I mean, we do it because we love it. And, I'm interested in how many downloads we get because who isn't when you're putting kind of your heart and soul into creating content, right? So I'm not going to say that I don't kind of look at it at all, but I kind of check it, but take it with a pinch of salt because the enjoyment and value that I get out of being involved in creating this far outweighs any statistics or downloads. But it has been really interesting to see it grow like week on week. And, we've got a nice monthly download number there now. And yeah, it's just fantastic to watch something grow that we put together. It's amazing. And that's all thanks to our community and those people that are listening, people on the podcast, those of you that join us week in, week out live in the space. It's blown me away, really. It really has.
Yeah, we appreciate all of our listeners for sure. So we've got some exciting news that happened with Twitter Spaces. Last week was their 1-year anniversary when they officially launched. Now, when they launched it, a year ago, it wasn't really for the public yet. It was really just Twitter employees testing it. But I was able to jump into one. I'm thinking it was either late December or early January. And just by chance, in the Fleets bar, because all of a sudden this purple glow showed up with this person. And I looked to see who it was. And it was a Twitter employee that I followed. And this is before any announcement for Spaces. Like, this was not on the radar for anyone. And I thought, what is this? So I tapped on it. I didn't know what it was going to do, but I'm like, let me tap on it and see what happens. And I was in a room full of Twitter employees and they were testing Spaces. So I got to be like a fly on the wall listening to them. They were really interested in testing the latency between the speakers and the listeners, like how much of a delay there was between the two. And they use the emojis to figure it out. So like, okay, if you're in speaker mode, when we say go, do an emoji. And then everybody, well, for really the whole room, everybody, when we say tap on one of the emojis, and they were trying to see like what was the lag. And it was a really big lag at the time between speakers and listeners, which was really interesting. So I just couldn't believe this random chance being in a room. And I was like, this is cool. And all I could think of was, oh my gosh, I want to be able to do this because I would rather do this in Twitter than Clubhouse. Because at the time, I was hosting a weekly Clubhouse for my Twitter Smarter After Chat. Because when Clubhouse got going and I got into it in December, I was like, I want to continue the conversation with my Twitter Smarter guest on Thursdays. And I did this years ago as part of a live stream, what I used to do a long time ago, because I've been hosting Twitter Smarter Twitter Chat for 6.5 years now. And when Facebook Live really got going, I thought, what would be really cool is after the Twitter chat, we moved to Facebook Live because it's new, it's cool, and I could bring the guest on and now everybody can see us. So we go from tweeting for an hour where we all feel secluded because we don't see anybody to now we're in a video live stream where they can see me and the guest and ask questions. And we can just keep that conversation going for a while. And I did that for a couple of years. And it was just fun and different. I like to do things when they're new and different so people can see. Part of it is I just want to do it because it's cool. But the other part is by me doing it, other people can see it in action and go, wow. Just like when you're telling the story when I was on Sarah Clay's live stream and then I moved you all over to Twitter Spaces so y'all could see it in action. So that's many times when I'm trying something new is because I want people to see how cool it is and the power of it and how can they apply it to what they're doing. So after a few years of doing the Facebook Live after chat for Twitter Smarter, I got kind of bored with it because by that point, everybody was live streaming and it just wasn't as exciting and cool. And I'm just off to the next new thing. But we fast forward to last year when Clubhouse first started and I got in there and I thought, I should do an after chat again, but we'll move it here to Clubhouse. But once I was in that room with the Twitter employees when they were testing Spaces, I was like, oh, this is what it would make sense for me to have an audio discussion in Twitter because my chat is talking about Twitter, right? We're teaching Twitter marketing, tips and advice. So why would I want to move us all over to Clubhouse if I could keep us in Twitter? So I reached out, the lady from Twitter that was hosting that random room I jumped into. She's actually like one of the head product people for Spaces. And I DM'd her and told her about my Twitter chat and what I was doing and how I was hosting an after chat in Clubhouse. And I would rather do it in Twitter. And they added me as a host, as a beta host. So that's how that all happened. And, the great story in this is, or the lesson in this is, don't be afraid to ask for something. She could have said no and okay, whatever. But if I had not asked, I would not have gotten the opportunity. So I just figured, why not send a DM? Why not ask? The worst thing they'll do is say no. Okay, life goes on. But what if they say yes? Now I can start hosting rooms in Twitter Spaces, this brand new thing that was just starting. Only a handful of people had access to host. So it all worked out pretty well, wouldn't you say, Suze?
Yeah, and what a great extension of Twitter Smarter as well. I mean, the different spaces that you now spin up, is it, 3 a week, including this one, is it?
3 a week. 3 a week, yes, because I have Twitter Smarter, which, was a no-brainer for me to do. And then you and I got together, you and I got together for my second idea of a room. And I came to you and said, hey, we should talk about audio. You're the audio queen. You're so into all this, podcasting so well, and all this social audio is going to be the big thing in this new year for 2021. And so I love that you like that idea, and we just started doing it. And you and I are great together as co-hosts. I think you and I just complement each other really well. And so I was doing these 2 rooms for a while, and then I thought, there's another idea I have. I wonder if anybody would care. So that was the Twitter audits, where we review Twitter profiles. And George is here. He's one of my co-hosts, and I started it by myself, and I just picked a random Saturday and just went for it, and people loved it. And it was so much fun just helping people make their Twitter profiles better. And then after several weeks, I reached out to my good friend, Dariana Lozano, who is one of the few people I know who's like a true Twitter expert, kind of like at the level I'm at. And she writes articles like I do, and she speaks at conferences like I do, talking about Twitter marketing. So she joined me. We started co-hosting together. As you know, Suze, it's so much easier having a co-host, because then it's not all on you. You don't have to do all the prep. Although the room you and I host together is really the only one that has a lot of prep. My Twitter Smarter After Chat is very little prep. And the Saturday room with Twitter audits, there's really no prep. I just keep a list of who wants to get reviewed. But there's really no prep in that. So that one's actually very easy for me. But this one's a lot of work that you and I do. But it's because we go through and gather so much information we want to talk about. And then we put it all together, and I bookmark it and turn it into a Twitter Moments, and we put it in the nest here. And we've got a whole system down. I'm quite impressed with how well we've put this room together and organized it. So I think we should pat ourselves on the back.
Definitely. I mean, I just love the way how All Things Audio has kind of organically grown. There have been little things that we've learned along the way as we've done it. And, I kind of file things away onto the Notion page during the week, and then come back usually a couple of hours before we start the room on a Wednesday, and kind of filter them out. And then I know that you're putting together the moment, and we have a bit of kind of DM chat over, what we're going to say and what we're going to focus on. And I just hope everybody can hear how passionate we are about this stuff and how much we enjoy doing it, because that's kind of the point, isn't it?
Exactly. If we didn't enjoy it, why would we do this? So we just love sharing this information, putting this out there to you all, and recording it as a podcast as well, since we both love podcasting. Let's get into the news, because we do have some stuff. It's not a whole lot of news. Usually we have a lot to talk about. We have a decent amount, not the usual amount, but Twitter Spaces, as I was saying just a little while ago, before I just started on my little story about how I started in Spaces, they marked the 1-year anniversary last week, and they held their community little gathering space, Q&A, where it was they call it their 1-year anniversary. And what's great is this room is recorded. You can go and listen to the replay. I have the tweet here in the nest, and we'll have it in the show notes for our podcast listeners. And these replays are available for 30 days. I mean, that's what Twitter tells us. I haven't tried to listen to. Have you tried listening to one that's older than 30 days just to see if it worked? Because I haven't even thought to do that yet.
Yeah, the card is still there. And in some cases, it even says that you can still listen. But once you click on it, it kind of goes to nothing. So the audio isn't there. I've kind of had a go with some of our previous spaces, which are now recorded natively as well as being recorded for the podcast. So yeah, it does kind of turn into a nothing. You just can't access the audio after a certain amount of time. But I still think it's a good amount of time, really, for someone to tap into that replay. I guess it's down to creators and hosts to work out if they want a longer lifespan on that audio, how they can get hold of it, basically, so they own it and can do whatever they like with it into the future. It would still be amazing to have a native download feature on it, so that it makes it just easy for us to grab that audio. But, I'm sure it'll come.
Yeah, I think it will come. And the great thing about these replays is it's no longer mobile only. You can listen on desktop, which I love. I've been waiting for this, Suze, and I've been asking Twitter repeatedly, please make the replay available on desktop, because I'm on desktop more than mobile. And I love now that I can just click play recording while I'm on my computer and doing other things and listen to a room. So I am super happy about that it finally happened. But if you guys were not present for this, the Little Spaces community gathering with their team, this is a great thing to listen to. It's only 39 minutes long. It's not super long. But it was really great hearing their take. It's really nice when the team at Spaces do these regularly and keep us informed what's new, what's going on, and then taking questions from people so that they can make this the best tool possible for us. I just love that about Twitter.
My main lookout around the year anniversary of Twitter Spaces was Spaces Day. So this was spun up by host Celine, who lots of people will know, along with Andrew Lyons, who is the guy behind the Spaces dashboard, which we've spoken about quite a lot here in All Things Audio. And so I guess this was kind of the creators' anniversary space for the Spaces Day, as they called it. And this was fantastic, but it was a 24-hour space. So I totally missed the Spaces community space because I was in and out of this for 24 hours. It was fascinating and addictive. And at one point I kept saying I had a microphone and I was a speaker and I was chatting away to host Celine and I was DMing him saying, I really must jump at past. And then it was like, well, I really must jump at the top of the hour. And then, oh no, I'm still here. It's fine. Let's just carry on. And I was there for
that's funny,
a good couple of hours.
But that's awesome.
But it was so hard to leave because it was just such lovely conversation. People talking about, just as we've done actually today, about their first experiences of Spaces, about the spaces that they host. They had a whole load of different creators, whole load of hosts. Some I recognised, some I didn't. Great to hear from other hosts that I've not heard of before and hear their experiences and the different spaces that they're spinning up on a regular basis as well. I mean, host Celine and Andrew were just sheer champions. Like, doing a 24-hour space is no mean feat. And, you know, I'm not they didn't kind of spin it up and then like mute themselves and disappear. They were present, like they were there, and host Celine was asking questions, Andrew was taking questions and all sorts of different things. And yeah, I mean, they sounded tired, believe you me, but it was incredible to be a part of, and just, it was incredible as a listener, incredible as a speaker, and what an amazing feat to mark the first birthday of Twitter Spaces. Yeah, it was a really good time.
Yeah, that's so cool that you were able to participate and get on there and speak. I wasn't able to with my schedule, but I did hop on a few times when I had a few minutes in between appointments and stuff. And I think it's awesome that they put this together. And obviously they're so passionate, both of them, about Twitter Spaces and, you know, devoting 24 hours to giving the mic over to all these different hosts that they've met throughout the year and getting their thoughts on this. I think it's just very commendable. So yeah, we definitely wanted to do a shout out to them. And they have the replay for this, right? Because when it was over, I was curious, like, will it play for 24 hours on the replay? And it showed like exactly 24 hours. I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah. And this is where we were talking about how one of the features that I'd spoken about a few weeks ago, about if you could bookmark or kind of chapter out your replay so that you could send your listener to specific points within a space, it would be really useful. Now, it would be really useful within an hour-long space like All Things Audio, because we could say, you know, we could bookmark, okay, we're talking about Clubhouse at this point, we're talking about Spaces here, we mentioned Green Room over here. That would be useful. When you've got a 24-hour space, that would be super useful because you can like tag which Spaces host you're interviewing at that point. You know, any of those highlight moments where, you know, no doubt people have kind of dropped exclusives around their space, or, you know, whether or not they were kind of feature announcements or anything like that. You can actually be able to really tag that within that audio and send people there so that they can find it within a 24-hour space. I'd suggest no one's going to sit and listen to the whole 24 hours. But I mean, what a great feat to have done it and to have that space and to show that actually a replay can be that long. So yeah, all good ticks. Tick, tick, tick.
Well, and the good thing when you do listen to a replay, especially a long room, whether you're on mobile or desktop, you can move where in it and forward or backwards, just move the play button. Also, when you're on desktop, you can do the different speeds. So if you want to listen at a faster speed, you're able to do that, which I think is also great. So, there's some nice little perks to that to make it a little bit easier to go and listen.
Yeah, there are. I've got fat thumbs though, so I find it really fiddly to scrub through on the little thing. So I would like it to be a little bit more kind of specific. But hey, we've got the feature, and it's something that we've just said this is just a year in, and we're able to record natively. We're able to listen back to replays that we haven't been able to attend live. There's so much that they've done with it in such a short space of time. One of the reasons that there isn't kind of loads of Twitter Spaces news is because hopefully the product team are now off for the holidays, and I think we've had the last update of this year as well, as I understand it, from Spaces. So I think it's kind of testament to the fact that they've got to the first birthday off on their holidays, which they well deserve, because when you think of all the things and where it's come from in the last year and where it is now, they have been working flat out on this, for which we are very grateful.
Absolutely, for sure. And Jocelyn, as always, is always finding very interesting things that are going on with Twitter Spaces. And he noticed this before I did. I think as soon as I saw his tweet for this last week, I then saw it myself, where when you schedule a room in Spaces, it looks different. And when you're done, like the screen in this, there's a screenshot here he took, and is so visually appealing. I really like this change they made. Don't you think that is a lot better than what it was before?
Yeah, I just think it sort of neatens up the UI a little bit, doesn't it? And it just brings it all into what you'd expect, I suppose. The buttons are very recognizable. You know exactly what it is that you're tapping on. It's kind of just a bit of a tidy up, but it's nice to see that once you're in that position of, okay, I've scheduled my space. How can I just easily send this out to wherever it needs to go? So yeah, it's the really recognizable little icons that we'd use within Twitter, and sort of intuitively go to, I suppose. So yeah, it's a good little update.
Yeah, definitely. And one other bit of news to share about Twitter Spaces. I did not hear this room live, but I happened to catch this in my Twitter stream this morning, that yesterday Alicia Keys did a room in Spaces where she was being interviewed. And check this out. 189,000 people have tuned into it. That's crazy. Here's how you can tell. You know how you find out? You click play recording, and this is with any room in Spaces. At the top, it'll tell you how long ago. So I have this in the Nest right now. If you click on it, it says it was 18 hours ago. So it was yesterday. And now it says 195,000 tuned in. So now the number changed. That's weird. Went from 189. So that's a cumulative thing. Actually, that's good to know. So that's not how many tuned in live. It's how many is tuned in live and the replay. So we don't know how many tuned in live. I'm sure it was a lot, but here we are 18 hours later, and the number just keeps going up and up. So a lot of people are tuning into this. I love that Twitter has added this when you're doing a replay and getting that information.
Yeah, and it's an aggregated number, isn't it? So it includes those who were listening live with those who have listened since to the replay, which, is obviously really, useful to see over time how that builds and at what point, more people listen potentially. I mean, these are all the kind of insights that I'm really geeky about and would love to see. So, maybe if there was a wish between now and this time next year, it would be to get some nice Twitter Spaces analytics. Is that going to be our thing for 2022? Maybe it is.
I would love that. That would be great. I know a lot of us have been asking for that, so hopefully that'll be something in the new year.
I'm sure there'll be lots of things that we'll think of that we'll want, but I'm going to stick with that one as my Christmas present for next year, please.
And so that's it for Spaces, but you have dug up some Clubhouse news.
Yeah, there are a few little bits of Clubhouse news that I must credit to Morgan Evitts, who joins our space quite regularly. Firstly, this tweet from Alessandro Paluzzi, who basically shows that Clubhouse is working on a way for people to recommend a room on Clubhouse. The screenshots basically show the kind of idea of what it is that you'll be able to do. So you'll be able to hit the little button that's a sort of share. It will then let you recommend the room to someone, so you can use someone's handle, and you can even type a little message to say why you're recommending it. So, you know, it might be someone's talking about something great, or, you know, I guess it's kind of the similar to calling someone into a room by DM on Twitter, when, you know, it gives you that sort of pre-message that says, here's something you might be interested in. I've found this space, come and join in. So yeah, and another way of kind of, I guess, using word of mouth, if you like, via text, to call in your mates into a room. Again, you know, helping with discoverability, which is still an issue on all of these different social audio platforms, I think. But yeah, another little thing that they're working on. Morgan was also saying that he was expecting there to be an announcement over on Clubhouse around their version of the quote tweet for Clubhouse, as he calls it, which I believe is part of that where you clip the audio. So over on Clubhouse, there's a clip button where you can basically hit that button, and it will take the previous 30 seconds of audio that you've heard from that room and turn it into one of these sort of audiogram pieces of content, where it will take the audio, it will caption it, and it'll also just show some circle profile pictures of who's in the room at the time when this was being said. It's a neat little piece of content to let people know that this is what you're listening to. You thought that this particular clip was a great piece, you know, of content, a great comment, and you'd like other people to hear it. I think what they're thinking of doing is actually making this clip button a bit more explicit, putting it in a different place. So it'll be put down at the bottom, kind of more towards the middle of your screen on your mobile. And it will also mean a change for the leave quietly, which is their kind of exit mechanism at the moment, which has always, I think, been traditionally in sort of the lower left-hand corner, and that will move up to the top. Now, what that does, it's kind of a psychological thing, I guess. There's a bit more, it's a bit more of a hassle to kind of move your hand up to hit leave quietly if it's in top right. I know if I think about how I hold my phone, anything that's along the bottom, that's like your key real estate, isn't it? Those buttons, they're the ones that you can like knock with your thumb and just kind of roll across. Yeah, I can do this, this and this. But actually, if I'm going to tap something that's on the top right, I'm probably actually going to hold my phone in my left hand and tap it with my right index finger, which is a slightly different movement, and, you know, actually takes a bit of, no, I'm actually intentionally going to do this and I'm going to leave. It's a lot more of a change from just knocking your left thumb, if you like, just over into the bottom left-hand corner and leaving. So he's suggesting that this might actually mean that people might listen for longer, because it's kind of a bit more hassle to leave in a way. It'll be really interesting to see if that is the case. In terms of these kind of quote rooms, I think there's kind of more to be explained around this. It's around the insights. I think if Morgan was here, he is here, he might be able to explain it a little bit. He might be able to explain it a little bit more than I can, because it's not something that I know a great deal about. But certainly in terms of that kind of behavior, I mean, again, this is something I could geek out about all day, like the changing of the UI and the way that affects the way that we interact with an app is just totally fascinating. And I love that idea that just by that simple, what looks like a simple like design change, could actually extend the amount of time that people spend in rooms. So yeah, super interesting. So yeah, potentially when we open the mic, Morgan might come up, maybe if he's feeling festive and nice, and might tell us some more about Clubhouse.
We just got 2 more pieces of news, just some articles we came across. And so if you do want to speak, go ahead and request the mic while I just real quickly go over these 2 articles I found. This first article was really interesting. It was from Media Shots, and the article is Why Social Audio Will Be a Battleground for Brands in 2022. And it's a really great read. Definitely recommend these articles, these 2 that we're going to show you. But a couple of good takeaways in this article that was really worth sharing is they make a really good point. They said it was arguably the COVID lockdowns around the world that really boosted engagement with all forms of audio. And that is so true. I think that's why Clubhouse really emerged last year while everybody was still in lockdown, and that thing was really getting going. And it was just a cool, interesting way to connect with people. And now here we are, you know, the following year. And social audio has really exploded. It's been such an interesting way to connect with people worldwide. And so eMarketer estimates that there will be 117.8 million monthly podcast listeners in the US by the end of the year. This is talking about all types of audio, not, social audio as a whole, not just Clubhouse and Spaces. But it just keeps showing like the popularity of podcasting, which I think is why Spaces and Clubhouse and all these other platforms are doing so well, because people love that ability to listen to audio on the go. Also, eMarketer says in the UK, 31% of 15 to 25-year-olds and 38% of 26 to 35-year-olds listen to at least one podcast each week, and that there are many clear engagement advantages with audio. Is so mobile, right? It's intimate, it's personal experience, and it's very convenient to consume while you're on the go. You can multitask when you're listening to audio. I mean, I'm always listening to a podcast. I'm either listening to a podcast or a room in Spaces while I'm out walking my dog every morning. It just so easy to consume. I love that about any form of social audio. Also, audio gives creators the power of engagement with the human voice. Listeners become very aware of excitement, joy, anger, honesty, and even dishonesty. And I've been podcasting. I know you've been podcasting a long time, Suze. I've been podcasting. I started in 2013. And that has been one of the best ways for me to connect with my audience and build community, because I'm in their ear and they take me with them and hear me talk about what, like my Twitter Smarter podcast I did for many years. It's been on a little bit of a hiatus in the past 2 years, but which I do plan to bring back though. It's just I'm doing too many things right now. It's the problem. I have to kind of rotate some of these things, but I do love podcasting. Yeah, I know. I just I come up with so many ideas. It's like, oh, let me try this. Let me try that. But I do love podcasting. I think it's a great way to connect with people. And now that we have these other platforms being Clubhouse and Spaces and all the other ones that are coming around, it's just such an incredible way to connect with people, with like-minded people. And the thing is about podcasting, I know for a lot of people, they had to learn how to do it because, if you're not techie, you don't understand the hardware and software you need, there's a learning curve to it. And so it's not everybody jumped into it, but over time it started getting really, really popular. But now in this year of 2021, you can be a podcaster without having to be a true podcaster. You don't have to have all the technology and be techie and know everything. You can just tap a button on your phone in Twitter and technically you're podcasting. I mean, that's basically what this is. It's live podcasting is the way I look at it. So I think we're just entering a new age with audio, and I love it. I'm so excited about where this is all going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the pandemic definitely opened up the gates for people to do what they could with what they had, like not being able to go out and get hold of all the big equipment, or, just being at home and not being able to go to work. So having the time to put something together that's just been an idea for 2 years because you've got too many things to do. It's given both the time and energy, but also just given permission for people to just start things with what they've got. And, actually making a start is way better than waiting till you've got everything in a row. Like, you can build on something if you've already started it, but if you never start it, then you've got nothing to build on. So yeah, it's been really interesting to see how audio, podcasting, social audio has grown during the pandemic, and probably as a product of it, really.
Exactly. And I just put one other article in the Nest. It's from Adweek, and it's an interesting article. Social audio is here to stay. Interesting read. We don't need to get into it right now because, we're going to start running low on time, but it's just, I like to find some of these articles that are just a good read that you can go, where I'm going to be sharing the Twitter moment where I have all of these tweets, all of these articles in it. So you don't have to worry about right this moment having to go and click on this and save it, bookmark it, email it to yourself, whatever. I'm going to share in the Nest in a few minutes the Twitter moment that has all of this stuff.
So I'm going to hop over to Morgan, who I would like to ask to expand on the Clubhouse stories that we were talking about earlier, if possible. I'd like to know, Morgan, a little bit more about this version of Quote Tweet for Clubhouse. If you can explain that a little bit, that would be superb. And hello, welcome to the space today.
Hello. I just wanted to say, firstly, thank you both for doing this for so long. It's been really wonderful, and I know we're coming up to, we're just past the Spaces Day, but this year in social audio has been really quite something, and it's been so nice to share this journey with you and think through things. So thank you for that, firstly.
Oh, we totally agree.
Thank you for always coming on here each week. Yeah, we appreciate you because you're always so great coming on here and sharing so much with us and our community. So thank you for always being here with us.
Yeah, I mean, as much as me and Madeline absolutely love social audio and everything that it's possible to do with it, it's not possible to be on all the platforms all the time. And, you know, Morgan, the fact that you've kind of given up your time and come and join us regularly to be our kind of Clubhouse correspondent, if you like, has, you know, just been a joy to us and really, you know, brings value to the All Things Audio community and space. So we thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, my pleasure. We could dive straight into that because the biggest news for the Brits in the space today, and if I could just pin this, is that Clubhouse got a new app icon today, which is Abraxas, who is somebody who's been on the platform working hard for a long time. He actually onboarded me when I first joined, which is pretty much a year ago now, and ran welcome rooms for everybody, I think every single day of the week. And has gone on to, from a position of not really having a following at all, to now putting together brand deals with various fashion houses and this sort of thing. He's become a kind of leading light of the Clubhouse creator scene. So it's really wonderful to see him take the app icon position. And I really hope that it means we might see some more UK centric stuff going on. I mean, I'll see if I can do something about that myself. But so what else have we got? We had the thing that came out today, which was very little gift, I suppose, to end the year. So it isn't the share button thing that we were kind of speculating about last time, but it's something that they mentioned last week was coming, and I'm glad to see it. So it's just a way to bookmark replays, and doesn't mention in Jane's, but also live rooms. So if you're listening to a live room and you need to go off somewhere, or you want to listen to a different room, you can just bookmark that room and come back to it later as a replay. So this is I think quite helpful, because I often find things that I want to replay, but it's not a good moment, so I have to remember who did it or which club or what profile I should book on. So yeah, just like a simple quality of life thing. So yeah, I'm really glad to see that, because I'm now using replays quite a lot. It's about a third of my listening time on Clubhouse.
I think if I use the bookmark feature over there half as much as I bookmark tweets over on Twitter, I'm going to be in trouble. There will be so much bookmark content between the two platforms. I could spend my whole life catching up.
Yeah, no, I have a whole Safari tab collection on my mobile, which is spaces that I want to listen back to that I missed. So yeah, how to manage that, I think, is going to be a part of next year. But good to see it being worked on. So the other thing is, it's still this is slightly speculative. So what I've seen is basically screenshots from parts of the Clubhouse UI that you can tick a flag on in the code, and it'll present to you something that hasn't been officially released. And we're seeing developments on these. So in Jane's screenshot, for example, for this Save Replays feature, the Listen Quietly button has been moved to the top right. But this is not something I see in the app at the moment. So it looks like, given that this was the last mini town hall of the year, that we won't see this until early January. So I can't really say much more about how it will function, other than, as we already know, it's the ability to, if you're in a room, to share it with the rest of Clubhouse and add a little description about why they should listen.
So this was what you were saying about, it's kind of their version of the Quote Tweet for Clubhouse. So at the moment we can clip things, but what this does is allow us to add that message as to why we've clipped it. Is that what the difference is? This
is a working hypothesis, yes. So It's the way I'm thinking of it, but then none of us have seen how it's presented to people once it's been shared. And of course, they're going to be very alive to the thought that this is a like a spam vector. You don't want a situation where you've suddenly got moderators on stage who are, in every room they do, telling everybody to, smash the share button. So what I'd like to see here is that this is basically a forced quote tweet, that you have to write a description, which adds a bit of friction. It's not just every room you're in, you're going to hit the share button.
Or perhaps there's a time limit on it, so you can only do it once every 5 minutes or something.
Yes, or maybe once you've actually listened to 5 minutes of the room would be nice, something like that. And you can imagine them making this. This is why I'm thinking of it along the line of a quote tweet, but what would make sense for Clubhouse is it would be nice for, say, club owners to look at the descriptions that have been written about the rooms and maybe pull some of those out and share them as a kind of social proof thing. Or perhaps they would also live in some way on your profile. So there would be a record of what you had said about rooms, which might discourage the spam kinds as well, but also build up the Clubhouse profile as something that is becoming quite a useful asset now, because you can very quickly scroll down and see the kinds of rooms that person has spoken in, and maybe you'll be able to see the things they've said about them. So it's just ways of building up a network that has qualities, I think, of Twitter in some ways, although in other ways much more specific to social audio use case.
Fantastic. I love speculating over what it could be, what it might be. As we say, these are all kind of screenshots from sort of reverse engineered stuff from the code, I'm guessing, from Jane Wong. And who knows what it might actually look like, whether it'll actually become a real thing. But I love wondering and thinking about it and trying to work out what it is they might be doing next. That's great. Thank you so much, Morgan. That's amazing to have run through some more stuff about Clubhouse.
And we got Hoseline, our last speaker here.
We couldn't close out our last space of the year, could we, without speaking to Hoseline?
Exactly. The last speaker on the last show of the year. So FYI, guys, we will not be here next Wednesday. So this is our last show of the year. We'll be back beginning of January. So 2 weeks from today. Hey, Hoseline, how's it going?
What's happening, people? How you doing? So thank you, Suze. Thank you, Paul, George, Jason, Adam, Sajad, Dr. J, Morgan, all participated in the Spaces Day. I know, Madeline, you were tight, and I knew your day was like, you could only participate before the actual event started. I'm like, but I just wanted to make sure Sue's represented for you as much as possible. So that was great. Big kind of like notion is it didn't crash for 24 hours. Remember when it used to crash like every 15 minutes? Now, stable enough to be going on for 24 hours. We had a few thousand folks swing through. We had between 50 and 60 speakers. I have to go through the audio. Also, Otter only records 4 hours of audio because there's no business case for recording more. That is true. So,
yes.
So that was a little bit of a situation. So
you can stop it and break it, though.
Yeah,
you can stop it. And,
I'm not stopping it every 4 hours, so we just wanted to keep it.
I understand.
So then Twitter Spaces hung out there for a long time. Danny Singh hung out for a certain amount of time. He spoke at the very end, which is kind of eerie because he was there for like the last 15 minutes, almost as if he knew. C at Work was there, which is great. To Michael's point, we did have a mental health kind of break and talked about, ensuring that we take care of the community. And the next day, day 2 of the 24-hour segment, I did find out from Megan that she did help prevent suicide, afterwards, which is great to hear. We were part of it. We did have a good lengthy discussion because that's often not spoken about. So that was phenomenal. A lot of notes that we're taking, a lot of things that are going to come in the future. So stay tuned for that. I was here last week and then I went into, what happened. So I got called to speak in the space. But anyway, the third mic thing was still in question. That didn't happen. But I always want to say what I found and what I didn't find. So when I say stuff and it doesn't happen, I also want to be able to highlight that. So that happened. We have to give a shout out to Andrew. He's a little bit under the weather. The 24-hour space kind of took a lot of energy from him. So just when you can, just give him a shout out. He's recovering from home. He got a little bit of the cough through the phone lines. So I'm noticing on Spaces they're becoming a lot more famous. Well, actually more social, to the point where I don't know if you guys tuned in last week. There was 2 Spaces in particular that like took the Spaces by storm. The McDonald's and Wendy's 24-hour drive-through. Did you guys participate or know about these 2 particular back-to-back Spaces that occurred last week?
No.
Madeline's
No.
No, I hadn't heard about those. Tell us more.
So basically, there was this girl that used to work at McDonald's, and she just decided to be the drive-through. I don't know what you call that person that does the drive-through, the receptionist or whatever. I don't know what they're called, but she made pretend like she was taking orders on the drive-through on her Spaces, and she would bring people up, and everybody would come up with various stories, and it was all improv, and that gained so much popularity that another space opened up called the Wendy's 24-hour drive-through, and that gained so much popularity combined that Twitter Spaces hosted a space, and they labeled it Twitter famous. So it's almost like the people that get well-known or set these spaces up that gets a lot of visibility, I guess Twitter is going to support them by having a Twitter famous space to discuss the space, which is a very interesting thing that, connotates the Jay-Z thing. And then there was another space yesterday about New York drama. It was kind of off so left field because these people don't have a lot of followings, and they just had like 2,000 people listening into this really interesting drama. So that's cool. I sent you guys a New York Times article about the copycats of Clubhouse. It's all stuff that we already know. They did talk about the Spark program. 120 people into that I know of. They started in the beginning of December. I'm seeing an uptick in the people using doing spaces that are recorded, and a lot of those are Spark people. If you haven't noticed, that's the essence of it. I thought I had something else. I was going through my timeline because I did. Oh, the emojis. So in the latest update of Twitter, there are there's actually 7 colors that are in the emoji set. Black is also in there. But there's only 6 that are utilized for the updated emojis for Twitter Spaces. We should expect it maybe next year or so. But the actual icon sets, the emoji sets, are in the Twitter sets of emojis, which I found last week with the latest update. So as an FYI, so that should be coming shortly. I did speak to the Twitter Spaces team in the last update. The recording, they're not going to make any updates into the new year in regards to like being able to save it or extend the lifespan of it. So you still have to go ahead and I think, if I'm not mistaken, you could still request the archive of your space. So you should be able to download your recording from that. So that would be cool. So I'm fascinated because we had a 24-hour space and it was readily available. So that was kind of awesome sauce. So now we're going to figure out how big this recording is of a 24-hour space so we could chop it into like the different segments. So those are like some of the highlights. Like I said, thank you guys for participating. Madeline, you were there in spirits. And just to say, I love you guys.
Oh, thank you. We love you too.
What a fantastic year, and what a great way to round up all things audio for 2021.
All right. See you guys in 2 weeks, right back here at All Things Audio. See you next time. Thank you to all of our speakers who came on and shared so much great stuff. And we're available in all of your favorite podcast apps. We're out there, All Things Audio. You can also go to allthingsaudiopodcast.com as well.
You certainly can. And you can catch us here on Twitter and use the hashtag AllThingsAudio, and we'll pick that up throughout the week. So that's it for this week. But thank you so much to everyone that's been here in the space with us and those of you listening. And we'll catch up with you next week.
Bye, everybody.